Close your eyes and picture it. The neon glow of an 80s night, the hiss of a cassette sliding into the deck, and that first forbidden chord rattling your bones. This was the decade when rock wasn't just played, it was fought over. Some songs were too raw, too bold, or too defiant for the gatekeepers of radio and TV. But the more they tried to shut them down, the louder they rang in our hearts. Tonight, we're reliving 10 of the most controversial banned rock songs of the 1980s. It hit like a cannon blast in the summer of '84. That pounding drum beat, the searing synth riff, and Springsteen's weathered voice cutting through the air like a hard truth you couldn't ignore. On the surface, it sounded like a stadium-sized anthem draped in red, white, and blue. But for those who really listened, Born in the USA was something else entirely. A gritty protest against the treatment of Vietnam veterans and the forgotten working class. Bruce wrapped heartbreak in rock and roll swagger, delivering a message that was both patriotic and painfully honest. For fans, it was more than a song. It was a reflection of the times. We'd gather in smoky bars or crank it up on long drives, some of us singing it as a victory chant, others feeling the weight of its words like a lump in the throat. In Reagan's America, where optimism and disillusionment clashed daily, this track became a mirror we couldn't look away from. The controversy came fast. Conservative stations played it without a second thought, waving it like a flag. But critics, and Bruce himself, bristled at the misunderstanding. It wasn't a blind salute. It was a cry for accountability. And when certain radio hosts pulled it from rotation after realizing its true meaning, that only cemented its place as one of rock's great misunderstood anthems. Today, hearing those first notes still stirs something deep. Pride, pain, and the complicated truth of a nation's story. In the 80s, this song reminded us that rock could still challenge the powerful while giving voice to the people who needed it most. And the boss? He proved that even a chorus sung by thousands could carry a message meant for the few who were truly listening. By the mid-80s, Queen were already rock royalty. Masters of the arena, architects of anthems that could lift a stadium to its feet. But when I Want to Break Free hit the airwaves, it wasn't just the melody that caught fire, it was the message and the image. That unforgettable video of Freddie Mercury, mustache and all, vacuuming in a dress with a knowing grin, was more than a cheeky joke. For many, it was a bold declaration of individuality, a shot across the bow of conformity in an era still tightening its grip on what was acceptable. The song itself was pure Queen, melodic, catchy, driven by John Deacon's steady bass line and Freddie's unmistakable vocals. It radiated freedom, not just in its lyrics, but in its very DNA. And while Europe embraced the humor and the heart of it, conservative America turned away, with some stations banning it outright, unable or unwilling to see past the surface. For fans in the know, this was more than a single. It was a lifeline. If you'd ever felt boxed in, judged, or told to tone yourself down, this song felt like someone had cracked open the window and let the light pour in. For those in the LGBTQ+ community, especially in the less accepting corners of the world, Freddie's fearless performance was a rallying cry, even if the mainstream didn't fully understand it yet. Looking back, I Want to Break Free isn't just a pop rock gem, it's a cultural landmark. It's a reminder that rock has never been solely about sound, it's about spirit. And Queen, with their knack for turning personal truth into universal art, showed that breaking free, in whatever way you need to, is worth the risk, no matter the backlash. Few songs in the 1980s captured the pure adrenaline rush of teenage rebellion, like Twisted Sister's We're Not Gonna Take It. From the opening riff, it's like a shot of lightning, bold, loud, and impossible to ignore. Dee Snider's snarling vocals ride atop a wall of glam metal guitars, delivering a message as old as rock itself. We don't have to play by your rules. It was part punk defiance, part heavy metal bombast, and all attitude. The music video, a miniature rock opera of defiance against an overbearing father, burned itself into the minds of every MTV kid who saw it. It was cartoonish in the best way, a rebellious fantasy every teenager could relate to. And yet, under the big hair and theatric, there was something deeply sincere about it. This was the sound of an entire generation pushing back against authority, whether it came in the form of parents, principals, or politicians. For those who came of age in the 80s, hearing this song was like getting a permission slip to be yourself. You might have been blasting it on a tinny boombox in your bedroom, feeling that surge of confidence with every chorus. Or maybe it was on the car radio, windows rolled down, shouting along with your friends as if the whole world needed to hear you. It was more than just a catchy hook. It was an anthem you could carry in your back pocket whenever life tried to box you in. Of course, controversy came knocking. Conservative groups saw the video and lyrics as a direct attack on traditional values, accusing the band of promoting disrespect and disorder. And when the Parents Music Resource Center, spearheaded by Tipper Gore, took aim at explicit and harmful music, "We're Not Gonna Take It" became a prime target in their campaign. Dee Snider famously testified before Congress, defending not just his band, but the entire principle of artistic freedom. That moment cemented Twisted Sister's place in rock history. They weren't just glam metal showmen, they were defenders of the idea that music should challenge, provoke, and inspire. And even now, decades later, those 5 words still pack a punch. Play it today, and you can feel that same jolt of electricity, the same thrill of standing up and saying, "Enough." It's the kind of rock and roll rebellion that never really goes out of style. When Purple Rain dropped in 1984, it was already a cultural earthquake. But buried among its towering anthems was Darling Nikki, a track that would ignite one of the most heated debates in music history. Raw, stripped down, and dripping with Prince's signature blend of funk and rock, it was unapologetically sexual from the first line to the last. No innuendo, no coyness, just a fearless dive into desire. Prince's guitar snarled while his voice slinked between seductive whispers and urgent cries, making the song feel almost illicit, like you were hearing something you weren't supposed to. And for many fans, that was the thrill. In the mid-80s, when mainstream radio still tried to pretend rock could be safe, this was a reminder that the genre's heartbeat for freedom, even when it made people uncomfortable. The backlash was immediate. Tipper Gore, after hearing her daughter play the song, was so shocked that she co-founded the Parents Music Resource Center, the group that would usher in the now iconic black and white parental advisory label. Suddenly, Darling Nikki wasn't just a song. It was Exhibit A in the national fight over what was appropriate for young ears. For those of us who lived through it, the uproar almost made it more enticing. That sticker on the album cover didn't push us away. It drew us in. Prince thrived in that space between outrage and art, proving that pushing boundaries was part of the job description for any true rock innovator. Today, Darling Nikki stands not only as one of Prince's boldest statements, but as a pivotal moment in the tug-of-war between censorship and artistic expression. If the 80s had a soundtrack for teenage mischief, Hot for Teacher would be right at the top. From the moment Alex Van Halen's rapid-fire drum intro kicks in, sounding like a Harley roaring through the hallway, you're hooked. Eddie Van Halen's guitar comes screaming in, playful yet untouchable, setting the stage for one of the most over-the-top, tongue-in-cheek rock singles of the decade. And then there's David Lee Roth, grinning through every syllable, delivering a performance that straddled the line between outrageous comedy and genuine rock swagger. The song's premise was simple, even innocent at first glance. A teenage crush on a teacher. But the execution? That was pure Van Halen. No filter, no breaks, just turbocharged rock and an invitation to get in trouble. The music video doubled down, blending absurdist humor with scenes that pushed MTV's boundaries at the time. Bikini-clad models, classroom chaos, and Roth playing the eternal class clown. For fans, especially those who grew up in the pre-digital age, this was part of rock's charm. A little naughty, a little rebellious, and a lot of fun. You'd hear it blasting from a friend's bedroom stereo while you leafed through Rolling Stone or a stack of cassette tapes. Maybe you'd sneak MTV on when your parents weren't around, hoping to catch the video before it got pulled from rotation in certain markets. Of course, the controversy was inevitable. Critics accused the band of crossing the line, and some school boards and parent groups lobbied to have the video banned from local airwaves. They claimed it glamorized inappropriate relationships and played into dangerous stereotypes. But for most fans, it was a caricature, an exaggerated rock fantasy no more harmful than an old Looney Tunes short, just set to blistering guitar work. And that's the thing. Beneath all the spectacle was Eddie Van Halen's sheer musical brilliance. That solo, a flurry of tapped notes and fearless bends, reminded everyone that Van Halen wasn't just about showmanship. They were about skill. Decades later, Hot for Teacher still sparks debate, but it also still makes people smile. It's a reminder of when rock videos felt like events, when guitar heroes ruled the world, and when a little controversy could make a song legendary. When Relax hit the airwaves in late 1983, it didn't just sneak into the pop landscape. It detonated like a glitter-covered bomb, driven by Trevor Horn's sleek, cutting-edge production and Holly Johnson's sultry, almost taunting vocal. The track pulsed with a hypnotic synth bass line and a rhythm that dared you not to move. It was danceable, infectious, and unmistakably provocative. But beneath the irresistible groove was a lyrical boldness that, in the early 80s, was almost unheard of in mainstream pop or rock. Its message of sexual liberation, wrapped in playful innuendo, made it both alluring and dangerous to the establishment. Then came the now infamous music video, a surreal, decadent nightclub scene that left little to the imagination. For those who were there, hearing Relax for the first time felt like stumbling onto something forbidden. Maybe it was at a house party where the lights were low and the stereo was cranked, or on a late-night FM station that hadn't yet gotten the memo from the suits upstairs. It was the kind of song you didn't just listen to, you experienced it, felt it in your chest, your feet, and somewhere deep in your sense of curiosity. The BBC famously banned it in early 1984, pulling it from both radio and television after deeming it too sexually explicit. But in classic rock and roll fashion, the ban only made it more popular. The song shot to #1 on the UK charts and stayed there for 5 weeks, all while igniting conversations about censorship, morality, and the double standards of broadcast media. Across the Atlantic, US stations were split. Some embraced it as a bold new wave crossover, while others refused to touch it. Looking back, Relax stands as a perfect example of how controversy can fuel a song's legacy rather than bury it. Its unapologetic celebration of freedom and pleasure was a signpost for the changing cultural tides of the 80s, when the boundaries of what could be said and shown in pop culture were being rewritten in real time. Frankie Goes to Hollywood didn't just release a hit single, they gave us a cultural flashpoint, one that still gets pulses racing whenever those opening notes hit the speakers. By the early 80s, punk rock had already proven it could shock the system. But the Dead Kennedys didn't just shock. They aimed to offend every delicate sensibility they could find. Too Drunk to Blank was a sonic Molotov cocktail hurled into the heart of polite society. Clocking in under 3 minutes, it was relentless, a barrage of distorted guitars, frantic drumming, and Jello Biafra's signature sneer cutting through the mix like a razor. The song wasn't built for radio play. It was built to wake you up, shake you, and leave you slightly uneasy. The lyrics, irreverent and unapologetically crass, painted a chaotic scene that was both absurd and disturbingly real, a jab at hedonistic nightlife, punk's self-destructive tendencies, and the hypocrisy of a culture that partied hard while pretending to clutch its pearls. It was satire at its most abrasive, delivered with the kind of reckless abandon only a band like the Dead Kennedys could pull off. For fans in the underground scene, this track was a badge of honor. You didn't just hear it, you hunted it down, maybe on a warped vinyl at an indie record shop or passed along on a hissy cassette someone recorded at a show. It was the kind of song you played when you wanted to draw a line between yourself and the mainstream. Predictably, the backlash was immediate. Many radio stations outright refused to touch it. In some countries, it was banned entirely, seen as vulgar, dangerous, and morally corrosive. But for the people who were meant to hear it, that was part of the appeal. Punk had always been about rejecting what the gatekeepers deemed acceptable, and Too Drunk to Blank embodied that to the core. Looking back, it's easy to see how this song, for all its chaos and crudity, was part of something bigger. It was a middle finger to sanitized pop culture, a reminder that music could still be raw, confrontational, and uncomfortably honest. And for those who were there, crammed shoulder to shoulder in some dimly lit club with sweat dripping off the ceiling, it was more than just a song. It was the sound of freedom, set to 3 chords and a beat that wouldn't quit. When Ozzy Osbourne released Suicide Solution on his debut solo album Blizzard of Oz, fans expected darkness. After all, this was the Prince of Darkness stepping out on his own after Black Sabbath. But what they got was a track that not only dripped with heavy, ominous guitar work from Randy Rhoads, but also carried a message that would spark one of the most infamous controversies of the decade. The groove was slow and intoxicating, the kind of riff that wrapped around you like smoke, while Ozzy's voice cut through with a warning tone. It wasn't a celebration of despair. It was a cautionary tale about the dangers of alcohol addiction. The title itself was provocative enough to raise eyebrows, but it was the misinterpretation of the lyrics that lit the fuse. Critics and certain parent groups insisted the song encouraged suicide, missing the underlying message entirely. Ozzy, in interviews, would explain the solution referred to alcohol, the slow poison that had claimed the lives of so many in the music world. But in the fear-laden climate of the 1980s, nuance was often the first casualty. For fans at the time, hearing Suicide Solution was like stepping into a shadowy alley of the rock world. Dangerous, alluring, but undeniably real. We'd spin the record in dimly lit rooms, the vinyl crackle adding an extra layer of eeriness, fully aware that this wasn't bubblegum radio fare. It was heavy in every sense of the word, both musically and emotionally. Then came the breaking point. 2 tragic teenage suicides in Nevada were linked by grieving parents to Ozzy's song, prompting a highly publicized lawsuit in 1986. The accusations claimed the track contained subliminal messages urging listeners to take their own lives. The court case became a flashpoint in the debate over music's influence on youth, drawing national media coverage. In the end, the case was dismissed for lack of evidence, but the scrutiny only solidified Ozzy's image as one of rock's most controversial figures. Today, Suicide Solution stands as a reminder of how easily art can be misunderstood when stripped of its context. It's also a snapshot of a time when rock music still had the power to scare the establishment, to make people question what their kids were listening to behind closed doors. And for those who know the truth, it remains a testament to Ozzy's ability to merge heavy riffs with a message that, beneath the darkness, was meant to save lives, not end them. By the time Bodies resurfaced in the early 80s on reissues and compilations, the Sex Pistols' legacy was already cemented. They were the band that could still make polite society shudder years after their breakup. Bodies was one of their most incendiary tracks, a 3-minute firestorm of distorted guitars, Paul Cook's relentless drumming, and Johnny Rotten's venomous delivery. Even in the looser cultural climate of the new decade, it was still too much for many stations and retailers to handle. The song's subject matter, a graphic, unflinching look at abortion, was something almost no rock act had dared to touch. It wasn't written to comfort or convince. It was meant to provoke, to spark uncomfortable questions. And provoke it did. In several countries, radio bans were reinstated during the reissue campaign. Proof that time hadn't dulled its shock value. For fans, especially those discovering punk in the 1980s after its first wave had crashed, Bodies felt like holding a live wire. You could find it tucked onto cassette compilations or imported vinyl, whispered about in record store corners like contraband. It was the kind of song you played when you wanted to rattle the walls, and maybe a few nerves in the process. Its continued censorship into the 80s was a testament to punk's staying power. Even as synthpop ruled the charts and glam metal strutted across MTV, Bodies stood as a reminder that raw, uncompromising rock could still be dangerous. It didn't matter that the Sex Pistols were long gone. Their spirit, and the controversy they stirred, was very much alive. When the Scorpions unleashed Rock You Like a Hurricane in 1984, they weren't just aiming for the charts, they were coming for the world's arenas. Rudolf Schenker's thunderous guitar riff, Klaus Maine's soaring vocals, and that fist-pumping chorus made it an instant rock radio staple. But the song's unashamedly sexual lyrics, coupled with its wild MTV video filled with scantily clad models, brought the German hard rock juggernaut more than a few headaches in the United States. In an era where glam metal was already pushing the limits of what was acceptable for TV, Rock You Like a Hurricane went all in. The track's relentless energy and thinly veiled innuendo turned it into a magnet for moral critics, with some US stations refusing to play it and certain music video networks giving it a late-night slot only. The controversy didn't slow it down. If anything, it fueled its rise as one of the most recognizable rock anthems of the decade. For fans, it was impossible to resist. You'd hear it blasting from garage band rehearsals, over stadium loudspeakers before kickoff, or cranked through the tape deck on a summer road trip. It had that perfect blend of danger and fun, a reminder that rock was still about turning life up to 11, no matter who clutched their pearls. Nearly 40 years later, Rock You Like a Hurricane still roars with the same intensity. Its bans and controversies are now just part of its legend, proof that sometimes a song's power lies not just in how it's played, but in the way it makes the gatekeepers squirm. For the Scorpions, it cemented their place among the era's great arena rock giants and gave us one last unforgettable, unapologetic shot of 80s rock rebellion. And there you have it. 10 unforgettable rock tracks that didn't just shake the airwaves, they rattled the foundations of culture itself. These songs reminded us that rock's true power lies in its ability to challenge, provoke, and inspire, even when the world tries to silence it. Whether you lived through the 80s or discovered these anthems later, they carry the same fire today as they did back then. Which of these takes you back the most? Drop your memories in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more rock history. Until next time, keep the vinyl spinning.